No, that
Yeah.
was perfect. So you grew up in Mexico. Your dad had his own real estate company where he was a broker, right? And
Yep.
then in 2008, when the recession happened, I believe it was 2008 as well. When the
Yeah.
recession happened, then everything kind of like crumbled. So do you feel like you get your entrepreneurial spirit from your dad?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because literally, like when I tell you we had a good life, like we were living in a nice house in a nice area. We had a lot of stuff. And he literally lost everything. Like everything was taken away to the point where we were struggling. Like I for like 2, 3 months, no running water, no running electricity in a house. Just imagine that. And then in terms of like what we were eating, just straight beans and tortillas, like
Yeah.
literally had no money to our names, but he never backed down. He decided to get a self-employed job, and really just always kept to being his own boss. And then after a couple months, he then started a air conditioning company, home improvement company with his brothers, and then we were able to get back into a good position. But just seeing him have a lot, lose completely everything, and not giving up, and then starting again, that really planted that seed for sure.
Dude, that's incredible. It's like, and you can tell like you get your entrepreneurial spirit from your dad, but you can also tell that you have a very resilience mindset where you overcome barriers. You don't see obstacles, you see opportunities, right? And that
Yes.
like came and that opportunity is proof because when you said like you were trying to pay your rent and you were like, okay, what can I do? Instead of you saying like, oh, I can't do it, like you literally looked up online, utilized the resources in front of you, and was like, okay, how can I pay my rent, right? And then he came across this credit, came across a mentor, and then that's when you started getting into that. When you started getting into this, and we'll touch on this a little bit further within the episode, but
Yeah.
when you started getting into this and you came across credit, you paid your rent, is did you feel comfortable being responsible to pay that credit back? Because a credit, you're essentially borrowing money, right? And not everyone has that. Not everyone is responsible, especially when it comes to other people's money.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question. So, at the age, I was pretty young. I want to say like 21, maybe 22, still a little reckless, but luckily I've always been pretty responsible when it comes to paying people back. Because, like, at the end of the day, that's your character, right? And that's why I'm also big on like credit scores and like always maintaining good credit. Because to somebody that doesn't know you, your credit report tells them everything. If you have good credit, it shows you're responsible. You figure things out. Like you said in that example, right? I could have easily been like, oh, I don't have cash. So, okay, whatever, I'm not going to pay this. But then that starts defining the type of person I am. So, for me, luckily I just had always built good habits to know, okay, even if I am going to borrow this money, I'm going to pay it back. In my mind, what kind of was going through my head was, okay, I need rent maybe for another like 3, 4 months. And then I wasn't expecting COVID shutdown to last forever, right? So I was like, okay, I'll front this rent payment on the credit card. I'll make the minimum payment because that's the great thing about credit. Even if you spend all of it, you don't have to pay that entire thing off in 30 days. You just got to pay a little portion of it. So
Right.
I was like, I'll front whatever money I need to front to just, continue surviving here the next 3 to 4 months. And then once everything opens back up, I already knew I was going to get a job, whether that was working, at a company or with my family. So in my head, I was like, I just need 3 to 4 months of breathing space. As soon as I get the job back, I'll be able to pay the credit card off. But what was interesting is during that time too, there was a lot happening in the stock market. I don't know if you remember or you're into the stocks, but there was something happening with AMC, GameStop. They were like blowing up, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of my friends that I lived with at the house, they were big into the stock market. So they were telling me about, certain moves we could make to make some money. I actually ended up doing a little bit of a risky move, but once I figured out how to get cash off the credit card, I actually took out $3,000 on top of the rent payment to put into stocks. And then funny enough, 4 months later, I ended up making $7,000. So I ended up profiting from the money that I borrowed. But yeah, to your point, not I hate to say, but not everybody is responsible with money and paying people back. But for me at that time, I knew this was borrowed money that was going to help me for the next 3, 4 months figure it out and then start paying back, pay in full at the fifth month or just make those small monthly payments while I was borrowing that money.
Dude, that is so cool. I didn't know you were like into stocks and crypto. I got into stocks and crypto, still do. I find it very,
Yeah.
very fun. So far, I never lost a single dollar.
Nice.
It's crypto, is very volatile, so that's a different story.
Same. Yep.
Especially like currently. So were you? Did you get into it during the bull run?
So yeah, pretty much in terms of the stocks that I got into. So I missed out on GameStop because by the time, it had blown up, yeah, it was just too, in my eyes, it was too expensive to get into. But the next thing on the map was AMC. So that's the one I was able to get into at a pretty low cost. And then yeah, a couple months later, it just blew up and I got out of it.